Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Another day in the dark, another day of confusion.
A little bit hard for us to try to find a reliable story.
Yeah, I have to keep checking in. It's not easy.
To get a new prescription from my doctor to go to another pharmacy.
London Drugs customers looking to fill prescriptions face uncertainty over which medications are considered urgent. Plus, student demonstrators dig in for the long haul.
We hope that the university and the government continue to respect the students' right to dissent and free speech.
Safety top of mind as more university encampments spring up across BC. Also, a big purchase being called a special moment on Vancouver Island.
The housing is just one piece. This is still land returning back to our community.
The Sashot First Nation buys a parcel of land to build off-reserve housing.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. After 5 days of near total shutdown, Canada Post outlets at London Drug stores were able to reopen today. While the store's pharmacies remain closed, urgent prescriptions are still being filled. But as Michelle Gassoub is finding out, it's still unclear which medications are available, and that's leaving many patients in the lurch.
It's day 5 of London Drug stores being closed following a cybersecurity incident. Would-be customers are being turned away by store employees stationed outside.
I came on the weekend, the store was closed.
This customer was able to fill his prescription, but only after paying in cash.
They told me that I could pick up a prescription, but I needed cash to pay for it. So I didn't have cash. I had to come back today. Yeah, I have to keep checking in. It's not easy.
A second man turns up, prescription in hand. He's ushered inside by the two employees, but moments later he emerges empty-handed. Were you told to go somewhere else?
To get a new prescription from my doctor to go to another pharmacy.
Okay, and how inconvenient is that for you?
Pretty bad because I'm going to travel next week, so I needed it.
London Drugs said in a statement, pharmacists remain on site at all store locations to assist with emergency prescriptions and other urgent care. But the company didn't respond to a CBC News question about exactly which prescriptions are being filled. Customers turned away will have to find another way to access their medication.
Pharmacists practicing community settings would be able to provide emergency supplies for ongoing medication therapy. And again, this will be based on professional judgment from the pharmacist, and that would vary by pharmacist to pharmacist. And for those who are in need of medication supply, I would encourage them to contact their local pharmacy, ask to speak to a pharmacist, and explain the situation.
It's still unknown when the pharmacies will reopen completely. London Drugs said the impact of the incident on operations has been significant and the restoration process is rigorous. There are billions of lines of data and code to review. There has been some progress with phone lines and Canada Post sites up and running. For now, those looking to fill some prescriptions will need to look elsewhere.
When they close, actually it's a little bit hard for us to try to find a reliable store that they have all the medicines inside it. Yeah.
Still, little information about the cybersecurity incident that has closed the stores as the shutdown stretches on. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
To Surrey now, where a man has been charged with killing his wife last week. Police were called to a home on 142nd Street and 76th Avenue on Friday night. Inside, they found a 33-year-old woman dead. Yesterday, officers arrested the victim's husband, 39-year-old Hardeep Sidhu, with the help of Canadian border agents. Sidhu was now charged with second-degree murder. Homicide investigators are asking anyone who saw or spoke with the couple recently to contact police. To the interior, a historic church in the heart of Kamloops caught fire this morning. The flames are now out, but as the CBC's Doug Herbert tells us, the backside of the building has been left damaged.
The fire has now been knocked down, but it broke out at around 9 this morning, causing damage to the exterior and interior of this historic building. Passerby say it started in a shopping cart pushed up against the side of the building.
You can only hope that it's going to be able to be restored, and I guess the damage won't be known until you see inside. But there was a lot of smoke pouring out, and I just hope it can be fixed because it's so iconic to Kamloops.
Kamloops Fire Rescue won't confirm the cause of the fire, but say they are investigating. They put a lot of manpower into this fire because it's a historic building. In fact, it's the oldest building left in Kamloops. Kamloops Fire Rescue say it did cause damage to a transformer, which knocked power out for around 1,900 homes and businesses. Doug Herbert, CBC News, Kamloops.
A milestone moment on Vancouver Island. The Sishat First Nation has bought a parcel of land in Port Alberni from Western Forest Products. The nation says it plans to build housing for its members and the broader community on the almost 8-acre property. Ken Watts is the elected chief councillor and calls this a special moment.
The housing is just one piece. This is still land returning back to our community. You know, bringing our hereditary chiefs to walk the land is a special feeling that you can't explain. The land is sacred. It's not just about what we build on it, but all the territory is sacred.
The purchase is the first for this nation, using a $5 million agreement reached with the province last year, but they say it won't be the last. The BC government has earmarked more than $150 million to help recruit and retain health sciences workers. Roughly half of that money will fund the effort to attract healthcare workers to rural areas and provide signing bonuses for those who fill high priority vacancies. The province is also expanding the number of communities eligible to 74 in total. Dozens of related occupations will get a piece of the funding as well, including audiologists, dietitians, lab technicians, and radiation therapists. If you live in Metro Vancouver and take transit to work or to school, you may have noticed your commute getting a little busier. TransLink says ridership has bounced back now to pre-pandemic levels. And as Liam Britton is finding out, it's only expected to get busier.
Here at Waterfront Station, it's hard to feel alone. This is the busiest SkyTrain station in the entire TransLink system. And if you feel that overcrowding on transit is getting worse, you're also not alone. 21-year-old Kenzie Fong has been a transit rider for almost a decade and has noticed buses and trains getting packed.
It's very overwhelming. I'm personally on the spectrum, and so I deal with overstimulation a lot. And so having all those people, especially having people bump into you, is very frustrating.
Madison Miller takes transit from Aldergrove daily, a 2-hour, 15-minute trip each way.
For my bus line, it gets pretty long actually, and then the bus always ends up filling up, like at Surrey Central, so nobody can get on at King George Station.
Thomas McCarthy commutes from Surrey by train and bike, but busy trains make that approach an uphill climb.
I find at nights at the peak hours it's really, really hard to get back and forth. We're usually waiting for 2 or 3 trains to pass.
TransLink released its 2023 performance review this week. The report finds after a pandemic-related dip, ridership is back to 2019 levels, and so is overcrowding. And that's thanks to a 20% passenger surge from the year before. South of the Fraser and the Tri-Cities are seeing faster than average rider growth, although Vancouver and Burnaby are home to the busiest SkyTrain stations and the busiest bus stops. TransLink says their 2024 investment plan will help with the busiest routes, but
we really need to tackle a long-term trend for next year where we can have a sustainable funding model that will allow us to grow over time instead of being kind of stagnant like we've been for the last 4 years.
TransLink says after 2025, they face a shortfall worth $600 million. So like 300 million bus tickets. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's bring in our Darius Madavi for a look at the forecast. And Darius, I know it's been a bit back and forth lately, but today really felt that warmth and that sunshine come through.
Yes, and I hope you enjoyed it, Tanya, because it's not sticking around too long. We've got some cloud moving in early tomorrow, and then we've got some rain to get us through the weekend. So enjoy the sun while it's here. In the meantime, in parts of the interior, we did see some light showers pop up. Temperatures are starting to come up now. We are drying out in the interior. We should get cloudy later in the weekend, but for now, lots of sunshine. And that means that we may see some of this fire danger come up. In the meantime, though, what I really wanted to highlight is the fact that up in the northeast, after just 2 days of sunshine, after that pretty major dump of snow and rain, we're already getting back into moderate and even high fire danger. And that really highlights how severe the drought situation has been there. Now, if we take a look at our conditions for tonight, lows are pretty seasonal. We get a little bit of rain in a few places where we might see just a few light showers, really. Risk of a thunderstorm in the boundary region as well. But other than that, we're just looking at some pretty clear skies. Then we get that cloud moving in tomorrow here in the south coast, Tanya.
All right, nothing too dramatic. We'll take that. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Organizers of a pro-Palestinian demonstration at UBC say they've gained more supporters over the past week. As John Hernandez tells us, those protesters say they're focused on creating a safe space and hope their camp will remain peaceful.
I'm at the pro-Palestinian encampment at UBC, where organizers say the crowd has grown over the past few days. There were just 30 tents here on Monday, now about 100 tents and 80 people camping here overnight. Their demands are posted along the walls of the encampment: an end to the war in Gaza, and for UBC to divest in companies that are complicit in the conflict.
So far, we haven't seen any correspondence with the university with us directly. And again, we're not really here to negotiate. We're here until our demands are met.
The encampment, among many in Canada and the U.S., some of which have erupted into violence amid standoffs with counter-protesters and police. Students here say those types of confrontations have been minimal.
We've been holding strong, lots of support, and no form of escalation from any security or RCMP yet. But still, we send a lot of strength and support to the students who have been attacked.
Organizers say their goal is to create a safe space for people of all backgrounds. Members of the school's Jewish community have rallied in support of the cause.
For us as Jewish faculty, we just want to come here and do some myth busting. There's a lot of smears, there's a lot of characterizations of this movement that are frankly false.
I feel safe. I have been to rallies in support of Gaza and in support of Palestine, and I have felt safe at them. I don't feel particularly this makes me feel safer.
Meanwhile, an encampment is also growing at the University of Victoria, attended by hundreds of students and faculty.
Genocide is not a Jewish value. Not all Jews support the actions of the state of Israel, myself among them.
Students at both schools vow to stay for as long as it takes. The universities say they're monitoring the camps, but for now aren't taking steps to shut them down. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it hasn't been quite that peaceful stateside. Still, the UCLA campus is relatively quiet now following an explosion of violence with pro-Palestinian demonstrators overnight. Our Lindsay Duncombe is there and tells us hundreds of protesters were arrested when police moved in to clear their encampment.
The protesters are gone, many arrested, and the cleanup is well underway here. Less than 24 hours ago, this place was full of tents and barricades. Police moved into the pro-Palestinian encampment in the wee hours. Hundreds of officers from several forces, some firing rubber bullets. Protesters resisted. Police say some threw projectiles. Irritants sprayed on both sides. This police action came a day after 100 counter-protesters clashed with protesters in the camp.
We didn't see no injuries on both ends. Our officers were able to remove the agitators. We're still working on a few agitators that are still on campus. However, we are making progress. Our officers are going to be here all day assisting the UCLA Police Department, try to get the protesters to discourage the protesters from coming back. We'll be here and we're very well prepared.
More than 200 protesters were arrested, led one by one onto buses. It will be up to prosecutors to determine if charges will be laid.
I think that police uphold the system of oppression, and obviously it's not right. They're just upholding the status quo. So we need to resist, and we need to keep protesting, and that's the only way change will be made, right? By resisting the status quo.
President Joe Biden spoke about the campus protests in Washington today.
Dissent is essential to democracy. But dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
He rejected calls to bring in the National Guard and said his administration's stance on Israel hasn't changed. More than 50,000 students attend UCLA. Today and tomorrow, classes will be virtual. The tents may be gone, but the anger and divisions remain. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Los Angeles.
Up next, one of the homeowners being sued by BC Housing for lying to get access to affordable housing says the province is playing politics. We'll have the latest developments after the break. Welcome back. In March, CBC broke a story revealing 1/3 of condo owners in a subsidized housing development in Victoria should not have been eligible. Dozens of them were sued by BC Housing for lying to get homes below market price. Earlier today, I spoke with our Jason Proctor about how one of those homeowners is now responding.
Basically, this revolves around this condo development in Victoria, the Vivid. It was made with a $53 million subsidized loan to the developer. Developer is supposed to pass those on to needy home buyers who have to meet certain criteria. One of the crucial things, they have to promise to live there for 2 years. And so the province found numerous people weren't living there, and some, in fact, owned multiple homes. So they took them to court. So there's about 24 lawsuits out there right now, all claiming that these people basically undermined this program aimed at tackling the affordable housing crisis in British Columbia. And what we see here is a response to one of those claims.
And what is the response detail?
Well, it's interesting because this guy says, his name's Jian Xin. He says, well, I've lived there for 2 years. He actually cites one of our stories where, the Minister of Housing said, we're out to get these lawbreakers, essentially. He says, I'm not a lawbreaker. You're, using this for political gain. And in fact, you're going to make me homeless by taking away my house. And he says, essentially, BC Housing lacks clean hands on this issue.
So he feels like a bit of a scapegoat, it sounds like. What are the allegations that have been made in court right now?
Well, basically, what we've seen is there's people, some people who allegedly own, millions of dollars worth of other houses. There's a realtor involved in this as well, who is herself being sued. She made $53,000 in commissions off of sales on this. As it happens, she's the realtor who was, did the deal for the guy who's responded to this. And he says, I relied on her advice, and I don't speak English very well, so it's not my fault.
Well, no doubt this story will have much more teeth to it as it goes on. Thank you so much, as always, for your expertise on it. That's our Jason Proctor. Well, 23-year-old Giovanni Manu is the first athlete from UBC to ever be selected in an NFL draft. He spoke with the CBC's On the Coast about getting the call from the Detroit Lions and just how special this moment is for him.
It's something I've been chasing since a child, and something I've been chasing since I joined this amazing sport of football. And the emotions and everything was great. Just a huge rush of the feeling of hard work has paid off. But most importantly to me, just to see my close friends and my family members, especially my parents and my sister, just to see how proud they were at that moment was a great moment for myself. When I got the phone call, with teams, what teams would usually do during the draft process is they'll take my they'll take the number of they'll take my number and they'll save it, and they'll tell me, we'll call you throughout the day and we'll just call to check up on you and see how you're doing. Don't expect it to be like a draft call. So when they called me, I looked at the TV. I see that they weren't up for a pick, so I assumed that this is one of those calls where they're just calling to ask how I'm doing. And then I pick it up, and then they're like, Coach Dan Campbell, the first word he says is that if I'm ready to be a Lion, and he's fired right up, and I'm just as excited. I'm like, okay, let's do it. But in my mind, I'm trying to keep myself composed, because I don't know how they're gonna pick me. They're not on TV yet. And then and then he explains to me, we just traded a future third-round pick to New York just to move up in the fourth round to get you, and then and then reality started to settle in, and the excitement started to rush in, and I was like, all right, let's do it. I'm super excited. So to any kid out there that has huge dreams of making it to the NFL or the CFL, if that's your dream, you can truly make it. It doesn't have to be a dream. It's something that's truly you're able to grasp. All you have to do is just put your mind and your willpower to it, and you'll achieve it.
Well, congrats to him. Up next, the need for speed. Local authorities are calling on drivers to pay closer attention to speed limits. But are drivers even listening? We'll find out after the break. Welcome back. Speeding on city streets seems to be a growing concern among Vancouverites. The CBC Early Edition Stephen Quinn hit the streets, the sidewalks, to hear the concerns of some. Take a look.
Here's the thing. Nobody drives the posted speed limit. Most people drive well over the posted speed limit. So I'm talking to people today about why that is, whether they drive over the limit and what they see around them. Do you drive the speed limit when you drive?
Depends on where it is, I guess. So try to, especially in the city, obviously.
Everyone's crashing in the Massey Tunnel or the Highway 1 or and all the exits and stuff like that. So
they just follow to each other. Who's the faster, they just follow them.
And what about on the highway?
10 clicks over usually. That seems to be the thing.
It's like the Autobahn. That's there's no limits there, and I'm not sure how much accidents happen over there.
You have it go from 110 then down to 90, and there's nothing that's changed. If they had it faster, I think it'd be there wouldn't be as much frustration everywhere.
Routinely, do you ever see people driving the posted limit if you're out on the highway?
No. People will drive faster.
Everyone's breaking the law all the time.
What has been your experience of driving here?
I find it okay, actually. I like driving slowly, so driving where you have to stop all the time actually suits me as opposed to driving fast on big roads.
It's 100. Why do we see people driving 120, 130?
Because people can. They don't obey it. They don't have to. So if they don't get caught, they get away with it.
Well, I think everyone's kind of just got a place to be a lot of the time. Everyone's always in a rush.
Yeah. It's I definitely at least bump it up and have it be reviewed because obviously it's not working.
A man in Clearwater has put his love for the Vancouver Canucks right in his yard. He gathered hundreds of rocks made of granite, shale, and black lava to create an orca. It's his way of cheering on the team during their playoff run.
Here I am in beautiful British Columbia in the town called Clearwater, BC. And we are very big Canuck fans out here, along with the rest of BC. So one day I woke up and I looked out the window and I looked on my bank and it looked like there was a fish in the snow. The snow had all melted, but there was a fish left there. So I thought a little bit about it. I thought, hey, well, the Canucks are getting into the playoffs this year. And just after that, there was also that little orca that was stuck on the Vancouver Island. And I thought, everything is coming together. So what I did was I created the Spirit of the Canuck rockery. So all these rocks are hand-picked and put in there. We need a Stanley Cup this year. So if the Canucks play half as hard as it took me to build this orca, I think we're going to have a good shot.
Still ahead, a look back at how the bike courier landscape has changed in Vancouver. We chat with someone who was in the industry in the 80s and hear their thoughts on how delivery biking has changed. That's next.
So I know when I really like a song, if within the first 3 seconds, I'm already vibing to it.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond.
It's not one person dictating what good music is, it's the community sharing what good music is.
Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
It is Throwback Thursday, and that means a deep dive into the vast CBC archives. Today, we're taking you back to 1989 when lots of bike couriers cruised through Vancouver streets. More deliveries meant more money for couriers, which often led to some rather aggressive riders. This sparked complaints, so City Hall started requiring bike couriers to get a license. Check it out.
566 Don, rush pickup at Keatley.
10-4.
It's being called the War of the Streets. Vancouver's 200 bicycle couriers jockeying for position in downtown traffic. The bikers versus the drivers. And the drivers say they're fed up.
A pain in the ass.
Why?
Because they have no regulation in Vancouver.
Do you find them dangerous?
Very dangerous.
Check out the dent at the side of my car.
A bike courier did it?
Mm-hmm. This one too, right at the bottom here. Big scrape along the side with his pedal. I don't like him.
The more deliveries, the more money the couriers make. But it's time-saving moves like these that have tempers boiling. Excuse me.
No problem.
Illegally driving on sidewalks. Sneaking between lanes. But the couriers say incidents like those are rare.
I don't feel I'm a traffic hazard. I like to think I drive defensively. There's some couriers out there that take too many chances. But I would say there's more couriers out there that are driving safe.
But dozens of drivers and pedestrians disagree. They've complained loudly, so loudly, City Hall is forcing couriers to get a license. Bike couriers now have a choice. Take a road test or, come Monday, face fines of up to $2,000. This driver's being tested on everything from road signals to speed. If he fails the test, he's off the road. So far, 10% have failed.
I think it really sucks because it's harming a lot of guys from just going out and making some money. It's basically saying that if you don't pass this test, you're out of a job.
I think it was a bunch of garbage putting us through all those tests. I mean, it's obvious we know how to ride bikes.
So far, only 1/4 of the city's bike couriers have gone for their new licenses.
To tell you the truth, it doesn't really change anything down here. We're all going to be doing the same type of riding we're used to. I don't think anybody's going to change their habits of riding.
But if they don't change things, the police will now be able to identify them. And come tomorrow, they'll be watching. Tammy Tomlinson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Mark Huggan joins us now. He's a former bike courier himself, plus the founder and president of Phantom Couriers here in Vancouver. So, Mark, thanks for joining us. We understand you started as a bike courier around 1989, the same time that video we just saw. So, how did you get started? Did you ever have to take that courier test?
Oh, yeah, I had to take the test for sure.
And how was your experience? How did you get into it, and what was your experience like?
Well, I accidentally fell into the job because I needed a job. And when I did it, it was the best job I ever had. And having to get the test was kind of freaking me out. I thought, it could be over. It's a test. Who knows what's going to happen? And I'm sure glad I passed. You know, I thought it was, it freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this job. I just know it. But I did. You know, just imposter syndrome or something. I don't know. I'm glad I passed because it's last.
How long did you end up being a bike courier, and did you have any tales you want to share about that time?
Well, it's just an awesome job. You know, I did it for a long time, and then I got stuck in the office running the company. And I have great couriers working for me now. And everybody that I met that was a bike messenger or has been a bike messenger, who's going to be a bike messenger, they seem to be good people. I love them. They are adventurous people. They're out there doing a great job. And, you know, for me, I just had lots of fun being on time, rooting, you know, hammering on my bike, and it's like hammer, you're late all day. Because the more you ride, the more you made, and I don't think it's ever changed. It's expanded into a company. I love it. It's the best job I ever had.
On that note, this is kind of a then versus now look. How much has the bike courier business overall changed from the 80s to now?
Well, there's a lot less, obviously, but our bike messengers that work for us now and all the ones I see on the street that I still get to see every day, there's quite a few. There's a lot more like DoorDash kind of things going on. And, I just saw another guy just appeared out of nowhere the other day as a new messenger dropping off like Sephora packages. So I was glad to see that bike messengers have picked up on the e-com thing, and maybe it's a little bit of a bounce back. But our bikers are busy all day, every day. I just wish there was more, because it's fun to have them around. It's great energy. I think they're good for the city. Like, it's fun and exciting. Like, make the pulse of the city, they bring it to you. And the people that are trapped in offices all day, I used to say, like, they're dropping off packages and picking up smiles. So it's just a thing.
You mentioned, the e-commerce with looking at Sephora and other businesses like that. And, technology has taken over many delivery operations. How different are the packages that couriers handle these days? You gave a few examples, but even the logistics around delivering them, how's that different?
Package type has changed. There's still lots of documents. We're always doing bank deposits and mortgages, like payouts and things like that for law firms, but we're delivering a lot like contact lenses and glasses like that are online. We get tons of them. The couriers all have racks. They take big boxes. We have a cargo bike, can move boxes downtown. It's into more packaging before. When I got started, I was doing documents freight forward to customs primarily. It was heavy, but that all went electronic. So lots of packages were moving. You name it, and a bike messenger can bring it. You forget your iPad in Whistler, it'll be brought down by car, and a biker will bring it to your office. They're still crucial. They're very crucial to the supply chain of the downtown business.
Pretty amazing how some things have changed, yet some have very much stayed the same. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, you're welcome. I hope you have a nice night. Thanks.
You bet. You as well. Thank you. That's Mark Huggin, a former bike courier himself, as well as the founder and president of Phantom Couriers. Well, it's part of Atlantic Canada's fishery that's bad for both the resource and the environment in this case. Equipment lost at sea. The CBC's Peter Cowan takes a look at this problem and the efforts to address it.
Underneath the surface of the cold, clear Atlantic waters lies a dirty secret. Old fishing gear washed away in storms doesn't just look bad. These lobster traps and crab pots continue to kill animals for years.
It's ghost gear fishing and continues to take a very valuable resource that's not able to be harvested commercially, or certainly could affect the sustainability of a various species.
Ghost gear is also a major source of ocean plastics. This green rope is ubiquitous in the fishery, and when it's left underwater, it starts to break down. Jess Melvin studies microplastics and often finds fragments of that rope inside fish.
So many of these marine species that are potentially could be ingesting plastics are also important wild food species. So we don't want to see impacts of plastic pollution coming down the line to communities and people who depend on them for wild food.
Over the last 4 years, Fisheries and Oceans Canada has given millions to nonprofit groups to clean up the gear. The government says those efforts have recovered 2,200 tons of old fishing gear, some of it reused and as much as possible recycled. But so far this year, there's a big catch: no funding.
Groups like ours are really stuck in limbo. We can't hire, we can't make season plans, I can't contract any captains, so we're just stuck.
The federal government insists it's still committed to removing ghost gear.
The timelines may be a little different from last year, but the intent is still there to work with those groups to ensure that that they're actively involved in being the stewards of the ocean.
I think we've only scratched the surface.
The groups are itching to get back to work, but warn it'll take months to hire staff and skippers to do the work this year, even after the money's announced. They worry the window is closing to clean up more gear this year. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Ottawa has released its annual report on greenhouse gas emissions for 2022. It was a year of economic rebound as pandemic restrictions subsided. The data shows emissions higher than in 2021, but lower than the previous 23 years. And the federal environment minister says that's proof Ottawa's current policies are working.
Overall, this updated report shows significantly lower emissions by 44 million tons than our pre-pandemic levels. That is the equivalent of removing 13 million vehicles from our roads.
The Liberal government's goal is still to cut emissions by 40% below 2005 levels by the year 2030. Experts say a lot more needs to be done to meet Canada's target. While the national numbers were lower in 2022 compared to 2005 overall, Alberta saw its emissions go up 7% over that same time period. A volcano eruption in the northeastern part of Indonesia has damaged houses and buildings in a nearby village. One resident says there were rocks and ash spewing out of the mountain for 3 hours earlier this week. Some schools remain closed today. Authorities have been evacuating thousands of locals from the area since the eruption began on Tuesday. A local state of emergency remains in effect for another 2 weeks. A street in a small town in Japan has become a go-to spot to capture photos of Mount Fuji, but that's about to change. In the distance, the mountain, yes, but a few feet away, construction of a future barrier that'll block the view. The problem is too many tourists, some even wandering dangerously into traffic. With Japan's currency down, tourism is up, and many visitors consider this framing of Fuji behind a variety store as quintessentially Japanese. Pretty soon, though, that particular view will also be Japanese history. Let's bring in our Darius Madavi. Pretty amazing to see how things change like that, but it looks like overall here, not too much change in terms of the forecast.
Not yet. Lots of blue skies still, but some rain on the way starting this weekend. Enjoy the sun while it's here in the last few hours tonight because we got some cloud moving in pretty much early tomorrow morning, probably mid-morning. I'd say by noon we're going to be pretty well covered with cloud here in Vancouver. We're already seeing that cloud move in on parts of the west coast of the island. And it's going to be just starting to rain tonight, starting to rain tomorrow there. Cloud already moving in tonight. And then we get our rain here on the lower mainland, not until later here we go. Get our rain on it's coming to the lower mainland probably early morning Saturday and then continuing at times through the weekend. But it'll be very sporadic coming in and out, just showers on Saturday really. There'll be periods of heavier rain on Sunday. It does look like it might be getting wetter for the marathon now on Sunday morning, but we'll talk about that in a bit. In terms of the rest of the province, most of the activity is confined to the south coast with just sporadic showers popping up in the rest of the province for now. But as we get into the end of the weekend and into early next week, we get some more flurries of activity across the board. So a little bit more excitement there. In terms of temperatures, we're going to see those continue to come up in the interior over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, also looking particularly warm here on the coast, except for if you're on the west coast of the island, because again, that system going to be hitting there first. So Tofino only reaching a high of 10 degrees, whereas the rest of us getting a little bit warmer. Those temperatures will start to come back down for the coast, including here in Vancouver, not too long after, especially inland sections and in the valley. You'll see about a 5-degree drop, but generally, other than that, as we cool down here, parts of the interior still remain plenty warm, even a bit above seasonal. Now, if we take a look at our conditions for tomorrow, pretty much just very calm conditions, lots of sunshine many places. We start to see that cloud moving in here, and again, west coast of the island, maybe the North Island, seeing some more activity. East coast of the island might get a few showers generally, but the rain is really only confined to the Tofino area. And lastly, if we take a look here in Vancouver at our 5-day forecast, we are getting cloudy tomorrow by around noon. We get a few showers through the weekend, and again, some rain moving in probably overnight Sunday into Monday. And we may see those showers now reach into Sunday morning. Hopefully we'll remain dry so that people running the marathon don't have to worry about sweaty and rainy conditions, but it remains to be seen for now, Tanya.
Looks a bit like last weekend, suspiciously. Okay, thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
It is a highly challenging and potentially heartbreaking aspect of wildfire evacuations, moving large numbers of farm animals to safety. But as the CBC's Dennis Coton reports, last year's extreme weather is prompting farmers in Alberta to prepare ahead for this season.
After a dry winter and spring, there is plenty of dry grass and wood strewn about the fields and forests of the Peace region. Perfect conditions for a fire to take off.
Last few years have been challenging for us. We've went through fires, we've went through floods up in this part of the world.
And across the province, livestock owners like Gary Smith are putting together plans to keep their animals safe. That includes preparing them for an emergency.
Have your animals used to being moved around, have them used to having people around them if you can. With horses and some of the smaller livestock, sometimes it's very difficult to get them to go where you want them to go because they pick up on the energy and the excitement or crisis of the moment, and they might be a little harder to handle than normal.
The Alberta government recommends that producers also identify safe places to relocate their animals in the event of a wildfire.
Up here in Mackenzie County, we have emergency response plan for the agriculture, for livestock, whether it's horses, cows, pigs, whatever you got. We got the grazing reserve that we can house animals in evacuation purposes.
Alberta Wildfire advises producers to proactively share their plans and information about their animals with each other.
Some of these things can include what type of animals that you have on your farm, what kind of medications that the animals have, and any, anything high risk that you might have on your farm.
Smith says keeping a cool head is paramount, especially when animals need to be relocated.
To bring them out of the pasture, do it as you normally would, and pay attention to your stock. They'll tell you a little bit too, so follow along with them and move them into position, and then you can get them in the pens and do what you got to do, sort them out and get them loaded on the trucks.
And if the animals cannot be safely moved in time,
last resort, cut your fences, run them through, and we'll gather them after the fire stopped.
Dennis Houghton, CBC News, Grande Prairie.
Coming up, a new exhibit is opening at UBC. It showcases 2 unique archival collections of life in BC around the turn of the 20th century. We'll have a preview for you up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
Two archival collections looking at the lives of early BC settlers are now on permanent display at UBC. One looks at the lives of Chinese immigrants. The other displays artifacts of those seeking fortune during the gold rush. Our Caroline Chan got the chance to check it out.
Yeah, I'm happy to show you a few of my favorite items from the collection. I'm Claire Malik. I'm an archivist at the Rare Books Special Collections Library at University of British Columbia. So we're actually in a gallery that holds two collections reflecting two different collectors and their kind of diverse but related interests. So the first of these is Dr. Wallace B. Chung and Madeline H. Chung collection, and they donated their collection back in 1999. It has over 25,000 objects in it. So we're sitting today in its most recent place on the second floor of the Irving K. Barber Learning Center, and that collection focuses on three interrelated themes: the history of early British Columbia and Canada, the history of the Canadian Pacific Railway, and the history of immigration and settlement with a focus on Asian immigration and particularly the Chinese diaspora in British Columbia. And then the second part of this exciting gallery is the Phil Lind Klondike Gold Rush collection. So Mr. Phil Lind, people might know him from Rogers Communications fame, but his grandfather actually went to the gold rush in the late 19th century, and Phil Lind became really passionate about collecting gold rush memorabilia.
So I'm Dr. Maria Chung, and I'm the daughter of Dr. Wallace and Dr. Madeline Chung. And I have had the privilege of growing up with two awesome parents and my dad and mom's collection in the basement. Dad always wanted to be something, again, that was helpful to people that were academics, that were doing the research and needed to dive deep into primary sources, but he also wants it to be a memorial to those sort of normal, everyday people that history tends to forget. This here is the picture that Dad saw in his father's tailor store above the store in the back, and it's the one that it started it all, the collection. So it's a beautiful picture of a white steamship steaming through the water at full speed with a Chinese junk, one of the traditional boats on the side. You could see a little boy, how that would be something that would really capture his imagination.
Well, Jed Lind was saying that your father dumpster dived.
Oh yes, he would we would joke about that, you know, the UBC professor of surgery dumpster diving behind the CPR looking for things they'd thrown out. His one regret is that Phil Lind was not around to see the opening as well, because Phil Lind was a very, very good friend to Dad, and they really did respect each other a lot. And the last time I saw Mr. Lind, he was saying how much he was looking forward to seeing the opening of the library, which of course he was not able to do.
Hi, my name's Jed Lind. I am Phil Lind's son, whose collection is now housed at the UBC Rare Books Library. The collection is called the Phil Lind Klondike Gold Rush Collection, and the collection is based on my great-grandfather, John Grieve Lind, who was a prospector in the Klondike Gold Rush of 1896, I believe, is when he went north. And now to have a place at UBC where, for the generation below me, my children can go and learn about the Klondike, like in a proper setting, is really nice. It's really nice to get an understanding and appreciation for it historically, and then go and see what it looks like now. So, as a family, we feel pretty blessed to have this little monument to that for us.
And then all the way over here on our left, we've got a big portrait of Johnny Lind and his dog. And we also have his diaries of the time where he writes about his experiences. And we actually took those diaries and worked with a company based in Amsterdam called Dutch Igloo, who uses technology from the 19th century called Pepper's Ghost to bring stories to life in a sort of 3D way. So we recreated Johnny Lind's diary scenes in this cabin where you can look in and see brought to life an actor who we hope looks like Johnny Lind and this trained dog to do some of the very day-to-day activities that he describes in his diary. As an archivist, we're trying to get people excited about archives often, and the collections I think do a wonderful job of doing just that, because when we learn history in school, we're often getting like a broad narrative, and you don't get history at this life-size level that the archival materials really tell you, you know, this was this person's ticket, this person's pay stub for working on the railway, this person's gold pan, and you can start to imagine their lives at this level that's much more relatable. And I think that is actually a lot more how we learn from history, is at that life-size level, just like we learn from our own lives, our mistakes and successes, when we can look back on history and think, oh, these were people that made these laws and people that made these maps, and we in turn can then make the world as we want to see it.
Can't wait to check out that exhibit. That is your news for this Thursday, May 2nd. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. You can always find us online as well. Our website is cbc.ca/BC. Janella Hamilton will have your next local news at 11 o'clock tonight, right after the National, right here. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great night.